Welcome everyone to the Achieving the Dream webinar series. This webinar, of course, today is Equity and Design for Holistic Student Supports, a gateway to college for high school students. Next slide, please. And this webinar represents a series of webinars that we've been featuring here at Achieving the Dream, focused on some of the unique needs of different student populations, starting, of course, with our first brief, which was based on what we are learning. And then our second, of course, our emphasis for today. And then we will have two subsequent webinars, one focused on increasing student success for student mothers at community colleges, and also supporting the success of students enrolled part-time. And so, of course, today we're going to take a deep dive at a gateway to college for high school students. And we're sure that you're going to enjoy that. The speakers today are listed here on your screen. I think you will find that they will all have engaging content and a lot of substantive information to share. And from there, we're going to move forward a couple of things just to remind you as far as logistics. Make sure that you are on audio settings you see on your screen right there. If you have a question, you can do that by clicking on the Q&A icon there that you see on the left-hand part of the screen. And you can also use the chat feature there as well. So we ask you to engage. If there are any questions or comments you want to share, please use those features. Anything that we don't have an opportunity to address today, we'd be happy to follow up with you on as well. So if you would like us to follow up afterwards, just provide us with your information and we'll be sure to do that. So with that said, we're going to get right into our content for this afternoon.
All right, thank you, Shauna. My name is Prentice Davis. I'm a senior manager with the Gateway to College arm of Achieving the Dream. And as you saw on the intro slide, I'm also joined by a couple of Gateway students who we'll have the pleasure of hearing from in just a few moments. But before we get to the good part, we should probably spend some time and set up this conversation a little bit and give you some background on Gateway to College. So Gateway to College establishes partnerships between school districts and community colleges through a unique, collaborative, and sustainable model that serves out-of-school and off-track youth. Holistic student support is at the heart of the Gateway to College model. And I think it really starts with this strong emphasis on personalized relationships. And a core objective for the holistic student support model is to help young people develop that sense of belonging to the institution and to the program. And it's probably no surprise to any of us, but even as students find a measure of success, they still continue to face substantial barriers and challenges. So thus, the report is necessary to be sustained. The success coach is a key figure at each of our Gateway to College programs around the country. We refer to the person in this role in a couple of different ways: resource specialist, success coach. So you might hear that terminology used interchangeably. And then also, just due to local constraints, sometimes they're designated as counselors. The point being, though, is that while the names might differ, the roles and the function that they play remains the same. And so they wear many, many hats, ranging from playing the role of an academic advisor, also holding students accountable as their accountability partner. They're also advocating for the student to provide access to services and supports both at the college and in the community. They run caseloads, so they are a case manager. You know, they're a counselor as well, but not in the clinical sense, but regularly checking in with them about how things are going in their personal lives. Many of our success coaches teach a college skills course, and a career readiness course. So oftentimes they're instructors too, and that provides another intersection point to connect with them. And then of course they play the role of a mentor as well. So you can see that this person wears many hats and plays many roles, and therefore is, I would say, the linchpin to holistic student support. So a little bit about the history of Gateway. It started in 2000 as a single program at Portland Community College, which developed the first Gateway to College model. It started in response to a number of students showing up at the institution, essentially overaged and undercredited. 3 years later, that work was recognized and PCC became an intermediary of the Early College High School Initiative. And at that point, we began replicating the Gateway to College model nationally. 5 years later, the Gateway to College program at Portland Community College spun off into the Gateway to College National Network nonprofit organization, serving all of the participating colleges and acting as oversight and providing professional development and collecting data. And, you know, April of 2020, it seems like it's gone by pretty fast, but this April, it will be the 1-year anniversary since Gateway to College National Network merged with Achieving the Dream. Currently, we have 35 member colleges and affiliates in 20 states and partnering with over 100 school districts nationally. A little bit about the Gateway to College student profile. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you see the eligibility criteria. And as you look through that, we're typically serving youth between the ages of 16 and 21. And, you know, as you see some other eligibility criteria such as GPA, the thing that should stand out to you is that we aren't targeting the highest performers. We're actually targeting youth who, you know, have a low GPA and may have been out of school or at least are behind in age behind in credits for their age and grade level. On the right-hand side, you see the student profile at entry. So this is aggregate data reflecting the data from our incoming students. So on average, students are 17 years of age. They show up with just under a 2.0 GPA and just about over half credits needed for their diploma. 60% are students of color. 3/4 of our students are first-generation students, and 2/3 are low income. So, you know, thinking about the brief and the context that it sets for Gateway, just a few things I wanted to touch on. You know, with the dramatic expansion of early college and dual enrollment opportunities, you know, I think what we're seeing and what we have seen is the primary beneficiaries of those models just happen to be high-performing students. In 2017, about almost 5 million youth between the ages of 16 and 24 were out of work, school, or any training. So I think that, you know, the 2017 figure, I think what it does is highlights the fact that there's plenty of work for us yet to do. And, you know, I think community colleges are starting to recognize the need to create that post-secondary on-ramp for disconnected youth. And speaking of on-ramp, in the brief, there was a young lady who was a Gateway student. Her name was Kristen. And I thought this quote summed it up quite nicely, where she said, "There's lots of off-ramps, but it's hard to get back on." And for me, what that does is highlights the need that she's essentially telling us, hey, it's easy to drop out of school or become disengaged with education. Where are the on-ramps? Where are the options to get re-engaged? And So to a certain extent, I think that that's a call to action for us to provide more on-ramps for students who may have gotten off track. So some keys to support, if you're familiar with ATD's holistic student support model, you will see some strong alignment with the design principles there. First and foremost, supports in the Gateway to College model are sustained and personalized. As I mentioned at the outset, authentic relationships are developed between coaches and students receive coaching support throughout their entire time in Gateway. Supports are also strategic and integrated as well. Students are connected to resources and services based on their individual needs. And again, going back to the role of the coach, they're seeking out those services and supports that exist both at the college and based on those individual needs. If there's some community-based services, they're also seeking out those services for Gateway students as well. And these services are integrated from the standpoint that this is an intentional part of the Gateway to College experience rather than an afterthought. Services and supports are also proactive. Attendance and progress is tracked daily. Phone calls are placed, text messages are sent to students if they're absent or late, and that happens daily. Students, in addition, have bi-weekly or weekly meetings with coaches who are often very, very persistent and engage in intrusive advising. So I think that, one of the takeaways in terms of implications from the brief, I think that it really, for me, it came down to a couple of questions. The first one is how can Gateway to College, how can that model inform what holistic student support looks like at your institution? And then the second question that it brings up is how can we appropriately scale some of what Gateway to College has to offer its students to other students more broadly? So those are a couple of questions that I wanted to leave you with. We'll have time at the end for questions, but wanted to also provide an opportunity for us to hear from the young people that we invited here on this call to hear from. So I'm gonna ask them to introduce themselves, and we'll start with Miranda first, and do recognize that you're muted, so make sure you unmute yourselves.
Hello, my name is Miranda Hayes, and I am a recent graduate from Gateway to College program, and I'm so excited to be able to be here.
All right, we're excited to have you, Miranda. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And I'm Ali Iskandari. I'm a senior in high school.
And what institution are you with?
I'm with Montgomery County Community College.
All right, so and you'll be graduating soon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right, so just have a few questions, and we'll start with Miranda first, and we'll take that pattern where Miranda will be the lead off, and then we'll have Ali respond after that. So the first one is, I'm wondering, for the folks on the call who represent multiple roles at educational institutions such as coaches, advisors, instructors, some folks represent college leadership. And so give them some insight into what your Gateway to College or what your high school experience was like and how you came to find Gateway. We'll start with you, Miranda.
My high school experience starting out as a freshman wasn't the greatest. It was a time where I was being bullied and where I was very suicidal, I was very depressed, and school just wasn't on my mind. I felt that it wasn't for me. I was constantly failing my classes. I had a GPA of a 1.2, and I was constantly just not feeling it. I was for certain that I was just going to drop out of high school. And through a friend, I heard about the Gateway to College program, and I was like, yeah, okay, I guess I'll give it a try, because I was so set on that. I wasn't someone who could graduate, someone who couldn't succeed. And when I took that test and when they said, yes, you're accepted, you're in the Gateway program, that absolutely changed my entire life. I went from a 1.2 student to a failing student to a 4.0 student who was able to graduate from high school and is continuing college. So the Gateway program greatly and drastically, helped me improve my success in academic life.
Wow, 1.40 to a 4.0?
1.2, correct, yes.
1.2, oh, okay, I gave you a little extra there. Congratulations, and maybe what was one or two things that, in addition to that support, what were one or two things that you had to do in order to not only get to that 4.0, but maintain that?
It was definitely reaching out to my peers and definitely the staff at my Gateway to College program. I definitely wouldn't have been able to do it without all the support that I was able to have. I definitely felt like over the years, I wasn't just, just a person on a spreadsheet. I wasn't one of the hundreds of students that they could have. I was someone who felt personalized and someone who felt like family. And I made tons of connections from there, definitely people who I felt would be mothers and grandmothers, and that definitely helped me through my support.
That's great. All right, thank you for sharing that. Ali, same question. Tell us a little bit about your high school experience and how you came to find Gateway to College.
So throughout my first 3.5 years of high school, I was pretty unengaged as well. But the way I found this program was in my junior year. I had a small credit card knife, and I didn't know about it. I bought it a few years prior to that, and we went on a school field trip, and they found it, and we had a 0 tolerance rule for weapons, and they classified that as a weapon. So I found out about the Gateway program through my my college, not my college counselor, but my guidance counselor recommended me for this because she thought I had potential. And near the midway point of my junior year, they transferred me over.
Okay. Thank you for that, Ali. And back to you, Miranda. I'm wondering if you could talk about some short-term goals that you're focused on currently.
Some short-term goals that I'm focused on currently would definitely be to keep my GPA up for as long as I can. I've had my 4.0 since 2018, and I'm hoping to be able to graduate with it by next year. Another short-term goal I'm really looking forward to is to do and be a part of my honor society as much as I can. And just to be able to be engaged with my school and with my community is definitely my short-term goal for now.
Okay. And what honor society are you a part of?
I am part of Phi Theta Kappa at Pueblo Community College. It's an honor society for students at the college, and it's national wide as well.
We know about them very well. Thank you. Ali, what about you? Talk to us a little bit about your short-term goals and what you're focused on currently.
So after my graduation this year, I'm planning on moving to a 4-year university. So right now I'm just trying to maintain a good GPA and get some scholarships.
Thank you. So at the outset, I talked a little bit about the role of the coach and the many hats that they wear. And, Miranda, I'm thinking about the supports that you received to help you be successful in Gateway to College, and wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yes, so the support that I received through the Gateway program at my college was something I didn't really realize that I needed or wanted until I had it. Coming out of freshman high school and transferring into the Gateway program, it was where I was very introverted, very reserved, and kind of drawn back. And I didn't really realize that I needed that kind of support that I wasn't able to receive at my public high school. And going into the Gateway program, I was able to receive support through going through weekly meetings with my counselor, who was also my teacher at the time, where I was able to grow a bond and where I felt needed and wanted and supported. And having that support of where you're not just some random student, to where you're actually important to your staff, definitely helped me in a way that I can't fully describe to others, in a way that I'm so grateful for.
Mm-hmm. And, thinking about that high school piece, we didn't really bring it up here, but we talked a little bit about, a couple of major factors why high school didn't work. Can you talk a little bit about that, and maybe as a juxtaposition of the support that you didn't necessarily receive as compared to the support that you're receiving right now?
Yes. So at my previous high school where I had been bullied, it wasn't an environment that I felt comfortable in at all. I didn't feel supported either by my peers or by my teachers. A few times I had reached out, nothing had worked, and I had just felt so alone and so just out of place at that school and in that environment. And switching over to Gateway was such a shock. It was almost like going to like a different country almost, It was to where the teachers were invested in you, and they were interested in not only just your academic success, but they were interested in how you were doing at home, if something at home was affecting your success in school. And that's something I feel like a lot of the high schools nowadays don't really take into consideration. And I think that's a lot of why the public school didn't really quite work for me. And switching over for Gateway, having that personalized communication with the staff and with other peers as well, was something that really changed for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for sharing that extra piece. Same for you, Ali. What supports did you receive that helped you be successful in Gateway to College?
So my resource specialist, which is also like a counselor, the teacher, just the general person in charge of the program at where I'm at, he probably provided the biggest support. Mr. Esau, he would give academic support to people who needed it. He would like stay after, help them out. If people are having trouble at home, they could go to him. If people were feeling like lonely or scared or isolated in a new environment, they could all go to him. He's just very welcoming and open, and he knows a lot about college, just being a college professor. So he's really fundamental in helping students adjust to a new environment.
Okay, great. All right. Thinking about the future, Ali's about to graduate, and Miranda's hoping to hang on to that 4.0 continuously. Miranda, maybe you could talk a little bit about how Gateway to College has changed the way you see yourself in your future, and what are some longer term goals that are on the horizon?
So it definitely changed my viewpoint as someone who can be successful. Coming to that standpoint of being in Gateway, coming from that environment, I wasn't expecting to graduate high school at all. And progressing throughout the Gateway program, I was encouraged to, be successful, to pursue, and to be pushed forward, even if sometimes I felt a little scared of definitely pursuing different programs and going through different assignments throughout school. It was something that I felt really changed my success as a student. I was able to go from someone who was very shy and scared to someone who was able to learn how to pursue and how to challenge the academic life as a student. And definitely some long-term goals right now is to graduate possibly with my 4.0 and with my associates of web design and development, and to hopefully enter the workforce after I graduate and continue my bachelor's online from there.
Mhm. Great, thank you for sharing that. Ali, same question. How has Gateway changed the way that you see yourself in your future? And what are some longer term goals on the horizon?
Well, it's adjusted the way I see myself, because the teachers at Gateway treat you like a person, like kind of an adult, versus like a student at a high school where they would hold your hand or try to make you raise your hand and ask for a pass to go to the bathroom. So it's a big difference on how I view myself. I think I definitely have some high self-esteem, and I'm more motivated to pursue my long-term goals, which I'm planning on majoring in computer science, and hopefully, you know, being able to create something I enjoy through that.
Are you planning on staying at MC3, or are you looking at some other schools?
I'm planning on moving on to a 4-year college that's in the city of Philadelphia.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Last question. And, you know, I mentioned this earlier in terms of the different folks that are on the call who play multiple roles within education at community colleges. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want the participants on this webinar to know about yourselves and or the Gateway to College model? Miranda, we'll go to you.
I would definitely just want to let everyone know how important the Gateway to College program is in changing the lives of young adults and young students throughout the communities, throughout our nation and states. Just speaking personally, I would have never graduated high school without the Gateway to College program. And I feel like that's something that is sadly very common in our students, where we don't feel successful or we're just not in the right environment at that moment. And with so many different backgrounds and behavioral issues or environments that we tend to be in, having the Gateway program throughout our cities and throughout our little communities, I think is just so important. And I definitely want all of you to know how important encouraging students to pursue a Gateway to College program in their community would be so successful for them as a student and for their personal lives as well.
All right, thank you for that. Ali, same question. What do you want the participants on this webinar to know about yourself and or the Gateway to College program?
I feel like there's a stigma against the program in general, where a lot of people entering it or thinking of having their child enter it think it's going to be a classroom full of unmotivated and just rowdy people who don't care about education in there. I think it's really important to note that a lot of the people I've met there are some of the most hardworking and motivated, passionate people. They just didn't think high school was a good environment for them, and everyone has different needs.
Absolutely. And Gateway serves to meet those needs. All right, so I know that we have a number of folks who are on the line right now, and we will transition to your questions. And so I know that Destiny will be manning the Q&A. So folks, if you've got questions either for myself about Gateway or the students, now is the time to get those questions answered. To access the Q&A panel at the top of your screen, that's a drop down. How are we looking, Destiny?
I don't see any questions so far. Oh, I have one question. So what considerations should a college think about when doing this type of program?
You know, that's an excellent question. And I think earlier, you know, one of the implications that I threw out there had to do with thinking about scaling different pieces of the program. So I think one of the things we need to think about is, what does the need look like in that particular community? And what capacity does the college have? What does their relationship look like with their school district partner? And perhaps a model such as this could be one way to either forge a relationship or strengthen a relationship. So first and foremost, it's about community need, and we need to ensure that our stakeholders are on the same page about addressing that need. And I think that those are two important starting points, because we want to get the right people around the table discussing, addressing the issue, so that we can have the strongest chance of success when folks are committed to doing something about the challenges that young people face.
Great. And so there's another question. Is there anything that our programs or staff could be doing different or better?
That is a really good question too. And I have some thoughts, but I'm wondering what Miranda and Ali would have to say about that.
Well, I would definitely say it's important to maintain a good connection and relationship with the actual college professors teaching the students outside of the foundation semester. I know a lot of teachers I've had don't understand that I'm a high school student. And so when they're contacted to send over a progress report about me or something, they just get really confused. So I think that's probably a really important thing to improve on.
Thanks, Ali.
I would also agree with Ollie on that. Having that reach out for personal connection, both through staff and through students, is something that has drastically changed how the students that will be interacting with the program are successful in. Definitely having that reach out and definitely recognizing them not just as a student, but as a person, and as a person that will eventually and hopefully be successful and enter the workplace, is something that I feel should be very recognized and very valued when making that decision.
Thank you for that, Miranda. Yeah, and just to add on with what we heard from the students, you know, I think I talked a little bit about relationships, and I think the power of relationships, knowing the young person's name, knowing each student's name, being able to do that and establish that connection, I think that that's where the magic begins. You know, oftentimes our young people feel like, you know, teachers don't care about them whether they fail or not. And in fact, some have shared specific quotes from educators that reflected that point of view. So it really does start at the relationship level. And then it is moving beyond that relationship level to being able to structure in a way to support students in unique ways that fit the challenges that they face. So first and foremost, it's about that relationship piece.
Great. And so the next question, did the success coaches provide support for classes that students struggled in academically? If so, how did they help?
Once again, I'm going to look to our student experts on the panel right now to offer their firsthand experience. I do have some thoughts, but I'm sure they have some direct experience with that.
For me personally, I came out of high school struggling a lot with math. Throughout my freshman year, throughout high school, I definitely pretty much missed a year of math due to not only the bullying of my peers, but also bullying of a math teacher that I had. And so I definitely struggled with that. And coming into the Gateway program, it was something that was so new to me. And having my teachers and my advisors help me through that, to where I was so scared of failing and being rejected, of not wanting to even try, and being pushed towards to where, you know, they would encourage me to, yes, you can do it, that you're not bad at it, that it's just happened to be the wrong time at the wrong moment. Throughout the years of my high school, and to switching to the Gateway program, to where I had the support and encouragement of where you don't feel stupid for asking questions, where you don't feel rejected by your peers and teachers. Having that support to where you feel connected and secure in the environment that being taught in the classes, especially the subjects that I struggled with, especially with other peers as well, is something that I feel is really important, of having that encouragement and that push for that student in particular.
I agree with Miranda. I think it's really important to have like a welcoming atmosphere among both the students and the teachers. And a lot of these classrooms, in my experience at least, are kind of smaller than regular classrooms. So it allows for a lot of one-on-one time for teachers and students to like communicate if a student's having an issue with a particular problem.
Mm-hmm. And thanks, Alia. I'll add on to that. Many of our Gateway to College programs feature an academic lab, which usually occurs once per week. It's essentially an open study session. Oftentimes there are guest speakers and different learning opportunities that are built into that time slot. But it is also a standing time for youth in the Gateway to College programs to get assistance on different aspects of the schoolwork that they're working on. Also, you know, many Gateway programs make good use of tutoring labs and learning centers. That is a expected part of the services that Gateway to College students will receive. And in fact, based on what programs are able to find out upon a student's entry into Gateway, students might have a conditional acceptance into Gateway, provided that they attend math tutoring or the English lab or something like that, that connects with maybe the weaker part of a student's academic history.
Great. And so this next question is for Ali and Miranda. Did either of you feel like giving up? And if you did, what happened that made you keep going?
I definitely felt like giving up at some points. As I explained earlier, I had come out of a rough situation, and I struggled very much with not only confidence in my schoolwork, and definitely confidence in social wise as well. And that was something I definitely struggled with. I had always had problems of feeling like a lone wolf from the high school, and having that encouragement and that connection through my teachers and peers, who I eventually learned to call family over the years, was so important. A lot of times I felt like giving up, of why shouldn't I just drop out? Wouldn't it just be easier to just move on and just enter some workforce or some kind of job? But my teachers and both my peers and the staff definitely helped to encourage me and to push me towards that, to where you can be successful, and no matter what you're going through and the type of issues that you may have, or anything that you may be going through, either academically or personally, they definitely helped me personally to achieve that sense of confidence and encouragement that I wouldn't have been able to have in other situations.
I never personally felt like giving up, but in my first semester, one of my classmates, she actually stormed out of the classroom and told everyone she was quitting and everything. And my resource specialist didn't let her do that. He really got on top of the situation, and my teachers too, who were in the classroom, they all, throughout like continuous weeks and stuff, they supported her and made sure that she felt like welcome and helped her. Like, she did end up graduating too. So yeah, even if I did want to give up, I'm sure I literally couldn't.
And so our next question is this college program continuing or planning to expand across the U.S.?
You know, the easy answer is yes. And I think our growth essentially was based on a number of grants that we received early in the history of Gateway to College. You know, we represent the college K-12 pipeline arm of ATD's business line. And, you know, our intent is to continue to do this work and to continue to support communities who have these needs. And we're also looking at, you know, we fully recognize that it's not possible for some institutions to have a person solely dedicated to the service and support of students. You know, many of our Gateway to College programs are small schools ranging from, you know, on the low end, maybe, you know, 40 or 50 students, on the high end to about 300 plus students. So we realize when we're talking about an entire institution, the scale is different, but we are open to helping folks think about how to better serve their students and how do we have the right supports in place to boost that retention and persistence for those students who might have otherwise left the institution because they didn't feel that support. So yeah, our work is continuing to expand, but we're also looking to assist institutions with thinking about, you know, are there elements of Gateway that are sufficient for the scale of the institution.
Prentice, this is Nick Mather, and I'm going to jump in if I may and just add a little bit more to that conversation, because if there are folks on the call today who are interested to think about bringing Gateway to College to their community, that's something that our team at Achieving the Dream would be eager to talk to you about. And my role is I'm the Vice President of K-12 Partnerships. Either myself or Prentice would be available to speak to any of you about that opportunity. And if you would like to get that conversation started, one way to do so would be simply to send us an email message at the address gateway2college@achievingthedream.org. I'll put that email address up in the chat box, but I would invite anyone who's interested to learn more about the Gateway to College program or what it would take to bring Gateway to College to your community to send us a message at that address, and we would be happy to talk to you about that.
Yeah, and I think in a couple of slides too, we also have a slide with our contact information on it too. So a couple of ways to get in contact with us.
Great. And so we do have one more question. Do the Gateway programs connect students with resources in the community when they experience challenges with food security or mental health?
The answer to that is yes, and that is part of the role of that success coach. I think I mentioned earlier that just based on the unique needs of Gateway students, they're accessing not only college-based resources, but community-based resources that range from addressing food insecurities. Many of our Gateway to College programs have developed their own, their own food bank, or at the very least, they keep snacks in the office because they understand that youth are hungry. Another approach from our Gateway programs is to provide lunch at the program in partnership with the school district partner. So those needs are being met. We also see students being connected with utilities and rental assistance, as well as childcare. So when I said that the success coaches wear many hats, I was telling the truth. Any other questions, Destiny?
I think that's it.
Destiny, there was a question that I responded to in writing to one person, but I wanted to just share a little bit of that answer with the audience if we have a moment. Do we have time? This is Nick.
We have time, Nick. We've
got
okay. 12 minutes.
We had one person ask a question about how can managers responsible for frontline support staff better support those staff in developing these relationships, particularly when they have a large cohort of assigned students? Are there processes, tools, or training that can help? And I just want to expand a moment on what Prentice said, because as he indicated, the Gateway to College program typically is serving a small population of students on a campus, maybe between 50 to 250 or 300 students. And so these programs, in the scheme of things, are relatively small, and individual coaches might have a caseload of 50 to 75 students. And naturally, you can provide much more personalized and regular face-to-face coaching when you have such a small caseload. However, we know that the types of personalized coaching that are being delivered in Gateway to College programs can have a benefit for a broader population at the college, and folks are looking naturally for ways to scale that. We've got partner colleges that have begun to scale some of those services by redesigning how they do their advising through an assigned advising model, or through using personalized coaching for specifically targeted groups, such as first generation college students who might test into developmental ed, or students who are identified as having other kind of early warning indicators at the point of entry. There are some programs that have grown out of these Gateway to College programs that have larger caseloads, 100 to 150 students, for example, and they might not get everyday contact. They might get once a week or once every 2 weeks face-to-face contact with a coach. And then at another scale, we've seen folks incorporate some strategies by using personalized contacts through texting, and assigning a staff member to do some strategic texting and giving personalized responses to text messages to students. And so there's a handful of ways in which we've seen colleges adapt these strategies so that they can be scaled to larger or smaller caseloads as may be available. One other element of this is that when folks implement Gateway to College programs, Prentice and the rest of our team provide training to the student success coaches, and some of the training includes strategies for how managers will facilitate staff meetings so that student needs and student success stays at the center of those staff meetings, and the most pressing needs of individual students who need the attention of staff are part of that discussion. So there are strategies that we recommend through our training, and there are other strategies that colleges have used to be able to make these efforts or make this ethic available to a larger population of students.
Thank you for that, Nick. How are we doing on questions there, Destiny?
I think we are done.
Okay, so there are just a couple of more slides. I wanted to just leave you with a student quote. It says, "Gateway changed the way I see my life and my future dramatically. Going to college showed me the life I should have." So I thought that was a nice quote to cap off everything that we've been talking about so far. Here is contact information for myself and my colleague, Nick Mathern. And before we move on to some of these final pieces, I just wanted to give a big thanks to the students who joined us today. I think that they provided some wonderful insights, and they gave us a lot to think about in terms of how we might structure students from a support position and understanding what their needs might be. So many props to you, Miranda and Ali, for the time that you spent here, and also from the point of view of the success that you've earned so far. So thank you, and best of luck to you in the future.
Okay, well, that concludes our webinar. What you're seeing in front of you is a list of resources on holistic student support. You'll find a number of resources that can be used in a variety of ways. And certainly if there are any additional resources specific to the Gateway program, as Nick mentioned earlier, if you're interested in learning more about that specific program, and or if you're just interested in learning more about overall what ATD can do to help to support you in improving upon the success of your students, but also in your building your capacity as an institution around working to support the success of those students, we'd be happy to speak with you. One thing that we did want to point out, and I think there was one more slide there. Yes, we do host annually a Holistic Student Supports Institute, in which we take a broad-based focus on holistic student support. So again, thinking about the integration of academic and personal supports for a variety of students. And we will be hosting that, which is annual for us in early October, and you see the dates there. We're still working on that location. We welcome you to engage this year. As in past years, there will be opportunities for individuals or college teams who are just very early on in thinking about how do I support the diversity of my student populations, and how do I improve college policies, process, workflows, and how do I design a better student supports system within my institution. There'll be opportunities for those who are early on in that process, as well as those who perhaps have specific design challenges to receive some consultation from Achieving the Dream staff members. And the last thing that I will say here is that there are 2 more webinars in this series. You will see the next one is Increasing Success for Student Mothers. That's on March 20th. And then also Supporting the Success of Students Enrolled Part-Time on March 27th. So thank you very much. If you have any additional questions about the Holistic Student Supports Institute, the content of any of the briefs that these webinars are actually based on, the webinars themselves, or just have any general questions, feel free to reach out to Julia Lawton on the Holistic Student Supports team, and you'll see her information there on the screen. Thank you again, and join Prentice in giving the students a virtual hand clap.
Yay.
Yes, and thank you so much for engaging with Achieving the Dream this afternoon. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you all.